January 13th, 1968. Folsom State Prison, California. Johnny Cash had just finished what would become one of the most legendary concerts in music history. The performance had been raw, powerful, electric. 2,000 inmates had cheered, stomped, and felt seen in a way they rarely did. Cash was backstage now, exhausted but satisfied. The adrenaline was still coursing through him. He'd connected with those men in there, really connected, and it mattered. He was gathering his things, getting ready to leave, when he heard a voice from behind him. "Mr. Cash, wait." Cash turned. A young inmate was standing there, maybe 25 years old, thin, pale, eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. Two guards flanked him, hands on their batons, watching carefully. "Yeah?" Cash said. "What can I do for you?" The young man's voice was flat, emotionless, like he'd rehearsed what he was going to say and was just getting through it. "Mr. Cash, I'm going to kill myself tonight. I just wanted you to know." The backstage area went completely silent. The guards tensed. June Carter, who was nearby packing up equipment, froze. Everyone looked at the young inmate, then at Cash. Cash didn't move for a moment, just stood there, processing what he'd just heard. Then he took a step forward. "What's your name?" Cash asked quietly. "Davis, Michael Davis." "Michael," said Cash, "why are you telling me this?" "Because," Michael's voice cracked slightly, "because you're the only person who's looked at me like a human in 3 years. And I thought you should know that your concert, what you did in there, it mattered, but it's not enough. Nothing's enough anymore." Cash looked at the guards. "Give us a minute." "Mr. Cash, we can't—" "1 minute," Cash said firmly. "Please." The guards hesitated, then stepped back slightly, still watching, but giving them space. Cash moved closer to Michael. "Michael, listen to me. Tonight you're going to live, because tomorrow I'm coming back for you." Michael's expression didn't change. "You don't have another concert." "I don't need a concert. I just need to talk to you, and I will. Tomorrow, I'm coming back." The warden, who'd been standing nearby, stepped forward. "Mr. Cash, that's not possible. You don't have another concert scheduled. We can't arrange—" Cash turned to face the warden. "I don't need a concert. I just need to talk to this man, one-on-one. Give me a room, give me an hour. That's all I'm asking." The warden looked uncertain. "Mr. Cash, we have protocols." "Then break them," Cash said. His voice wasn't angry, just determined. "This man just told me he's going to kill himself tonight. I'm not leaving here knowing I could have done something and didn't. So I'm coming back tomorrow, and you're going to let me talk to him. Are we clear?" The warden studied Cash's face. Then he looked at Michael, who was staring at Cash with something that might have been hope starting to flicker in his eyes. "I'll see what I can do," the warden said finally. Cash turned back to Michael. "Michael, do you believe me, that I'm coming back?" Michael was quiet for a long moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. "Then you're going to make it through tonight, because I gave you my word, and I keep my word. You understand?" "Yes, sir," Michael whispered. "Good." Cash reached out and put his hand on Michael's shoulder. "I'll see you tomorrow." The guards led Michael away. Cash watched him go, then turned to June. "We're staying another day," he said. "I know. I already figured." That night, Cash couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Michael Davis, about the flatness in his voice, about how he'd said, "I just wanted you to know," like he was reporting the weather. Cash had been to a dark place himself, had stood on the edge and looked into the abyss. He knew what it felt like to think there was no way forward. And he knew that sometimes all it took to pull someone back was the smallest thread of hope, a reason to survive one more night. He hoped he'd given Michael that thread. The next morning, Cash returned to Folsom. No cameras, no crew, no audience. Just Cash, June, and a prison social worker the warden had assigned to be present. They brought Michael to a small room. Plain concrete walls, a table, 3 chairs. Michael sat on one side. Cash and June sat across from him. For the first few minutes, nobody spoke. Cash just looked at Michael, really looked at him. Finally, Cash said, "Tell me your story." Michael was hesitant at first, but slowly he started talking about his childhood, about mistakes he'd made, about the crime that had landed him in Folsom, about the guilt, about how every day felt like drowning. "I got 15 years. I've done 3. I have 12 more, and I can't do 12 more years of this. Waking up in a cell, being told when to eat, when to sleep, when to breathe. I'd rather die than do 12 more years." Cash listened, didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just listened. When Michael finished, Cash was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Michael, I can't make those 12 years go away. I can't change what you did or where you are, but I can tell you this. You are not your worst moment. You are not this cell. You are not this prison. You're a human being who made a mistake, and you have a choice. You can let this place kill you, or you can survive it and come out the other side." "I don't know how to do that," Michael's voice broke. "One day at a time," Cash said. "That's all. You don't think about 12 years. You think about today. Can you survive today?" "Maybe." "Then that's enough," Cash said. "And tomorrow, you ask yourself the same question. Can I survive today? And if the answer is yes, you do it again and again, until one day you walk out of here." Michael's eyes were filling with tears. "Why do you care? You don't even know me." "Because I've been where you are," Cash said. "Maybe not in a prison cell, but in a prison in my own head. And someone cared enough to help me out of it. So now I'm doing the same for you. Because that's what we do. We pull each other through." They talked for 2 hours about faith, about redemption, about finding meaning even in suffering. Cash didn't preach, didn't lecture, just talked to Michael like he was a person worth talking to. Before Cash left, he wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to Michael. "This is my address," Cash said. "You write to me anytime you need to. I'll write back. You're not alone in this anymore. You understand?" Michael nodded, clutching the paper like it was a lifeline. "You're going to make it, Michael. I know you are." Michael Davis survived that night, and the next night, and the next. True to his word, Cash wrote to Michael, not just once, regularly. Letters of encouragement, stories about his own struggles, reminders that Michael was worth saving. And Michael wrote back. At first, the letters were short, guarded, but over time they became longer, more honest, more hopeful. Cash sent books, sent a guitar so Michael could learn to play, sent photos with notes written on the back. "Keep going, you're doing it." The prison officials noticed the change in Michael. He became a model inmate, started taking classes, helping other inmates, finding purpose. In 1974, after serving 10 years, Michael Davis was released early for good behavior. The first thing he did was find Johnny Cash. Cash was performing in Sacramento. Michael bought a ticket, sat in the back row, waited until after the show. When Cash came out the stage door, Michael was there. "Mr. Cash?" He stopped, looked at him, and then his face broke into a huge smile. "Michael?" "Yes, sir." Cash walked over and pulled Michael into a hug. "You made it! You actually made it!" "Because of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You gave me a reason to live. That night, I was ready to die. But you came back, you kept your promise, and that meant something. It meant I was worth something." Cash pulled back, his own eyes wet. "You were always worth something, Michael. I just helped you see it." They stayed in touch after that.
Not constantly, but enough. Michael would send Christmas cards, updates on his life. He got married, had kids, became a carpenter. And every few years, he'd go to a Johnny Cash concert, would sit in the audience and remember the night at Folsom when Johnny Cash saved his life by doing the simplest, most profound thing possible. He showed up. Years later, after Cash had died, Michael Davis was interviewed for a documentary about Cash's prison concerts. People talk about Johnny Cash like he was a saint, Michael said, and maybe he was. But what I remember most about him is that he was human. He saw me, a prisoner, a nobody, someone who decided to end his own life, and he treated me like I mattered, like my life had value. And when you're in that dark place, when you've convinced yourself you're worthless, having someone, especially someone like Johnny Cash, tell you you're worth saving, that changes everything. What do you think made him come back that next day? The interviewer asked. Michael thought about it. I think Johnny Cash understood something that most people don't, that sometimes saving someone's life isn't about grand gestures or dramatic interventions. It's about showing up. It's about keeping a promise. It's about looking someone in the eye and saying, "You matter to me." That's what he did. He showed up. And it was enough. Did you ever tell him how much it meant? Every time I saw him, Michael said, and he'd always say the same thing. "I'm just glad you're still here." Like it was no big deal, like he hadn't literally saved my life. That was Johnny. He didn't do it for recognition. He did it because he couldn't not do it. The interviewer paused. What was it like, that conversation the next day? What did he say that made the difference? Michael's eyes got distant, like he was back in that room. He didn't try to fix me. He didn't give me easy answers. He just sat there and listened, really listened. And then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "Michael, you think you're the only one who's felt like giving up? I've been there. I've stood on the edge, and the only difference between me and you is that someone pulled me back. So now I'm pulling you back, and someday you'll pull someone else back. That's how this works." Did you pull someone else back? Michael nodded. 3 times. 3 different people over the years who were in dark places. And each time I remembered what Johnny did for me. I showed up. I listened. I gave them a reason to make it through one more day. Because that's what he taught me. That sometimes saving someone isn't about having all the answers. It's about being present. About caring enough to show up. What do you think Johnny would say if he knew that?
Michael smiled through tears. He'd probably say, "See, I told you your life had value. You just needed to stick around long enough to realize it." That's how he was. He saw potential in people that they couldn't see in themselves, and he was stubborn enough to keep believing in them even when they'd given up on themselves. The interviewer asked one final question. If you could talk to Johnny Cash one more time, what would you say? Michael was quiet for a long moment, composing himself. I'd say thank you for seeing me when I was invisible, for keeping a promise when nobody would have blamed you for walking away, for treating a condemned man like he was worth saving. But most of all, I'd thank him for teaching me that redemption isn't something you earn. It's something someone gives you by believing in you before you believe in yourself. Johnny Cash gave me that gift, and it changed everything. The story of Johnny Cash returning to Folsom Prison to save Michael Davis's life never became widely known during Cash's lifetime. Cash didn't talk about it, didn't publicize it. It was private, between him and Michael. But those who knew about it understood that it exemplified everything Johnny Cash stood for: his belief in redemption, his commitment to the forgotten, his willingness to see humanity in places others refused to look.
January 13th, 1968, Johnny Cash gave one of the greatest performances of his career at Folsom Prison. But the most important thing he did that day happened after the camera stopped rolling. A young man told him, "I'm going to kill myself tonight." And Johnny Cash said, "No, you're not, because I'm coming back for you." And he did. He came back, he kept his promise, and Michael Davis lived. Not because of a song, not because of fame, but because Johnny Cash showed up and reminded one man that his life had value. That's the real story of Johnny Cash at Folsom Prison. Not just the concert that became legendary, but the conversation that saved a life. Because anyone can perform for a crowd, but it takes a truly extraordinary person to show up the next day for one man nobody else cared about. Johnny Cash was that person, and Michael Davis spent the rest of his life grateful that he was.